respond to that is by saying, well, you now have to prove that you are taking care of this data in some particular way. And the initial state, of course, will be that everybody comes up with their own set of requirements. And then we, as the people in our individual organizations, will have to face this multitude of different requirements, which is incredibly expensive and complicated to manage. And therefore, trying to come up with some streamlined process or a unified process or some kind of a standard is valuable. And the way you can sort of negotiate that is as a community, much more effectively than as an individual organization or an individual representative of one institution. And that then leads directly to the next point, which is to manage change. How do we deal with these new regulations that pop up? And we can, of course, if everybody is doing it on their own, then we all have to first learn about it, we read about it, then we try to figure out what could possibly be the solution. If we do it as a community, then we can sort of divide and conquer. Each of us, many of us, read the stuff and then share the important conclusions. And one organization says, oh, we know how to deal with that. And another organization says, we know how to deal with that. And then within a relatively short time, we have a reasonable solution that everybody can just implement, and we save our collectively a massive amount of time. And then as a community, we also want to have the goal of how can we simplify the compliance process. Often, many of these compliance requirements are written in a legalese type language because they want to cover all the possibilities. It's hard to read, hard to understand what do you actually have to do. And with multiple eyes on that, we can probably come up with something that's better, more streamlined, and say, hey, we can meet all these requirements by doing these and these things. And that is helpful for us as a community. And we can actually, as part of our negotiation and advocacy role, we can maybe go back to some of those organizations that impose the requirements and say, hey, if you formulate it slightly like this, then it will be easier. So next slide, please. So it's as an NSF grant, it's a 3-year grant. So the first one started in 21-22. Actually, it didn't start until December of 21. But anyway, that is our first sort of academic year. And the first thing we want to do is set up the relationships, and then within the community, discover some gaps, like what are the things that all of us are struggling with and for which no good solution or guide is available. And that naturally leads to making an inventory of what do we already have? What are the things that some of us have implemented that we all can benefit from? And then we'll put that on this website, shared website. So that's the plan for the first year. And then the second one, we want to try and get to that more active role. Now that we have a community, we know what our needs are, we know what we already have, we know where the pain points are. How can we integrate better with our partners, like the standards organizations and hopefully even the federal agencies like Department of Defense, other organizations like EDUCAUSE. Of course, EDUCAUSE is sort of an interesting example. They are an organization that are focusing, of course, on providing educational resources, but they too are seeing the increasing pressure to manage data in a compliant way. And so it has now moved up in their priority list. And so they are very interested in doing this. And they are, of course, as a large organization, they're a very powerful partner. And then we also want to develop training programs, training materials. If anyone has developed something, we all develop some training materials. Can we share them? Can we make them a little bit more general, remove the institution-specific information from it? And then also set up mentorship, like Some of us have started on this 10 years ago and have more experience and more scars. Others among this group of participants today just got hired in a particular job to say, hey, you need to come up with a compliance program for our institution because it's now becoming important. And then we want this community to be the community where we can establish these mentorships, and they can be as formal or informal as we want. That's for us to define. So maybe the word mentorship is, may sound a little heavy, but that's not the way we intend it. We just want to make sure that maybe some of the people who just started a job can be paired up with one or more people who are willing to answer their email or answer their phone call to answer some questions. It could be as little as that. I personally had a relationship with a mentor that was exactly like that. There was a person who said, hey, if you have a question, just ask me. And for the first couple of years, that helped me tremendously. And of course, it didn't take that much time on the mentor. And then in the year 23-24, we want to finalize our assessment, like how effective have we been in creating this community? How have we helped each other? And then we design a long-term roadmap. How can we make this community move and sustain itself? A good example is the Campus Research Computing Coalition, CARC, that many of you probably know. They do research computing support. They started maybe 5 or 6 years ago with an NSF grant, and now the NSF grant has run out. But the organization is still there. It's thriving and is doing useful things all the time. Next slide, please. So we will make these slides available after the talk, and I'm not going to go through all the little details, but we do have a plan that we sort of sketch out, and it sort of reflects what is in our proposal to NSF. But none of that is cast in stone, in the sense that if we want to rearrange it or emphasize some things more than another thing, that's what the community is about. We want feedback and input from all of you to refine this. Next slide, please. So the end goal is just a set of deliverables. Again, something that we promised to NSF that seems reasonable. And the first thing is to set up monthly meetings, with this one being the first one. And the focus of these monthly meetings is that they are all hands meetings, where we get together both the established and the emerging institutions and share some showcases, like what have we done, and the established showcases the established institutions can tell us a story about what have they done and how have they overcome certain difficulties. Whereas the emerging institutions may say, hey, we are trying to set up a program and we are running into this problem. And then as a team, as a community, we can help each other figure that out. And that's what part of the agendas of these monthly meetings could be. And we do this both from the sort of administrative management of grants and contracts and compliance and IT, as well as from the researcher focus. Like the researchers will get data use agreements sent their way in order to access certain data that they really need to do their research, to answer their research questions. And we want to hear from them as well. Other things that we can do are planning and organizing and actually having training sessions, webinars, assessment processes, and planning exercises or planning descriptions. And then we discuss strategic partnerships. What can we do? How can we get to the goals that we want to go to? Then we want to have 3 full or 6 half-day workshops and training events. So that's something that we want to have as a deliverable over the next 3 years. Then we also want to create a repository, as I said, of specific resources, templates, standards, interpretations, best practices, consulting expertise, documents, guidance, all kinds of things. And then we also want to have a central hub for communication, so that if people want to communicate with each other within the community, that there is an easy way to go there and to sort of summarize discussion threads. But you have to realize there are two different kinds of activities. One is to just exchange information with each other in a direct communication, like, hey, this is happening, DoD made this announcement, or there's a new memo from the Department of Education about the FERPA requirement. And then that's one short-term piece of information that is very valuable to spread quickly through the community, which is what we want to provide. But at the same time, once a particular problem is raised, maybe during some of these active threads, and we have a good summary of how to address it, then hopefully some members of the community will write it down in a nice summary document and make it available as a resource for others to just read, so they don't have to weed through many days of and hundreds of messages back and forth to sort of distill what was the conclusion of that particular question, because they encountered the same question and they would like to have the answer, and all the answer is in that communication channel. To have it in a nicely summarized document is much more efficient. And then another thing that we want to do in these monthly meetings, and that we want to have as a delivery, is a community strategic roadmap. So where do we want to go for the future? And then also, what are the evaluation criteria and the assessment metrics that we are going to report on? It's like, how do we measure that we are making an impact, that the community is useful? Next slide.
I'll speak on this one.
Yep.
I put in chat that sometimes the agenda coming up might be something that you want to bring others in from your institution for. This is a prime example. So we will be spending next month completely around how to build the cost model, and you will get to hear pretty much two times of a decade's worth of lessons learned and probably battles that have been fought with significant scarring, as Eric mentioned. And so we will be hearing from Purdue University and University of Florida. Jay, I see you have a question.
Yeah, quick question. To facilitate getting that out to others in at our institutions, can you all, in fairly short order, send us a prepackaged, pre-canned message that we might use to get that out to others, so that we're not crafting it ourselves?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I think this one will be great. I already have lived some of the content, and I'm excited to see that and share it outward. But that's something I'm dealing with in my new role, and it's certainly something that came across in the workshop series that many of us are fighting from very different angles, or how do you get the support you need, or wow, this is expensive for the amount that it's actually covering. So we'll get to learn from some people with some significant lessons learned. I wanted to share some of the links then for what we're going to do on the planning side. And I'm also opening it up to more questions on, do you have questions about this project or award? The website, as Eric mentioned, regulatedresearch.org. We're going to start filling this in with resources around your public pages that I've found. So, by the way, if what you can find online by searching a few terms is not what you'd like to be public, you might want to note that, because I'm about to put links to that and share it out as part of the community, that I've seen this in maybe North Carolina State, I've seen this in Nebraska. And so I'm willing to share out many of these links, that let's just get them in a central repository, that maybe I'm trying to struggle through what should be posted on our site. And maybe this is something, I see you have a great plan that you've enacted. And this will probably also be where I start collecting some of the groups that I'd love to come share their message too with us. So by all means, if you have a great and unique story, that's what I'm going to be looking for, but we're also about to step through that in the planning area. So what questions, are there any questions right now? Clear as mud? Probably. Most people came because they knew what they were coming in for. If you haven't seen, I do have links within that document that I just shared. And let me actually share that screen instead. Where is that? Share screen. I want. Oh, the fun of having too many things open. This one. No. All right. All right, as I pull that up and think you're all prepared, and then where is that? Here it is. Ah, that's why. All right. Share this one out now. Why is that not showing up as an option? There it is. All right. I believe we all now can see that link. I don't see too many people there. Did that come across in the chat?
Yeah, we can see it, and the link is in the chat.
All right. I'd like others to join me there.
Send the link in the chat again, because I think a lot of us don't actually see it. It must have been posted early on, and if we joined after it was added, we can't.
Yes, confirm.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
All right. Let's go to that link.
Are you sending it just to presenters or to everyone?
Oh. Oh my gosh, how many things have I just sent to? All of my chats went to waiting room participants. Thank you. Oh, there's no one in the waiting room, by the way. Which means you all got to not hear me saying, when it was coming to the mentoring things, I said it could be something as simple as connections between people and their roles to more established people. I said the slides are actually already online, and I shared that link of regulated research / monthly webinars. And then I also noted to myself that the agenda might be best suited to bring your coworkers and other units. And you all are so polite on not getting any of them.
Okay.
Now I have friends in the document. That's much better. So this is the document that you are welcome to keep open. And if you add some more things to it over the week, I'm perfectly fine with that too. I recognize that, especially once you get into what are your public web pages or some of your favorite web pages, you know, I doubt you have them all right now in copy paste. And if you come back to that, I'm perfectly happy with that. But I figure it's smarter for me to ask and versus emailing everyone and saying, hey, can you do these items too? So this page won't change anytime soon, but I'm really excited. Let's see what we can get.
Yep.
So I do have the link to our Slack group. I can't guarantee that that's where we still exist in 3 years, but it is a great place right now. I've been pretty proud of it that since 2017, we've really stayed on topic. Haven't had too many random people come in as let me promote, I don't know, my uncle in another country who has a lot of money. So far so good, but we will keep our eye on that. And obviously if it starts turning into junk, or if we need to start bringing more communication into different channels, we'll deal with that. I'm just pleased to see that we've been using it. We've been coming back to it with, here's maybe a town hall I attended, or did you see this regulation? So far I've been appreciating the contributions to it, and hope anyone joins that would love to participate too. I suppose my only request, if you are joining, is please put your institution behind your name. It helps us all, and it saves me having to harass you behind the scenes. I mentioned the workshop earlier that if you haven't read it, this thing is solid gold for you and your institution. It's the Higher Ed Regulated Research Community of Practice, and that was an output of a previous award that Purdue University had. And this was written by 10 of leaders in this space, and we came up with 6 major pillars that we were all struggling with and trying to help each other out on. We wrote it as something you can bring back to your institution, as well as we recognize it's not something you would probably read once and you're done, because gee, big shock, next month you're going to be fighting another battle in another pillar. And what did we say about that? So we'll try to get more of that online, some of those resources that we came up with. But yeah, looking forward to how to add to some of that. That's a huge input into this grant. All right, let me talk through at least how we've set up some of these things. So on the whose journey should we share? I know we've all worked with various mentors. We've had the one-on-one conversations with other institutions, and we're just sort of looking for who definitely are the people that we should be pursuing. Should we tell their story to the bigger group? And feel free to vote for ones that sound more interesting. Let's make sure that that's covered. So the numbers you see right now is because we did do this session at Trusted CI Cybersecurity Summit. And the reason we're redoing the session is there wasn't enough attendance at that session. So the numbers you're seeing doesn't mean that Harry Hoffman's is the greatest thing possible. It just means of that small group that they voted highly for that one. So I'm looking for your additions, please add areas or amazing stories you know of. Who are we missing? And I'm open to, let's share with the group. Let's just write things in. How do you want to, whose story do you want to hear about? Then we go with weird, awkward silence because no one wants to admit we've all sought out help from others, or are they listed? I guess that's a fair question too.
Yeah, and we'll leave this document open for the coming day, so you don't have to fill it out today. You can do it later, today, tomorrow, anytime.
Oh, absolutely. Eric, Andrew, you're asking if we can vote for multiple. Vote early, vote often. I come from Chicago, so. I suppose so, similar to University of Hawaii, that one got added because we were simply curious what's happening there. And maybe if there are others that I know they're doing something great, but I don't know even who to talk to about that, feel free to add those. I mean, we are looking for, we'll start reaching out to people listed here. Maybe they're not the right resource, maybe they are, but we'll certainly start trying to get these people to, whether it's a recorded talk from someone else, how can we offer more support in this area? And thank you. I see all of these anonymous animals typing, and I very much appreciate helping fill some of this in too. This is very valuable. You guys definitely know what's happening there beyond us. Aw, for little University of Michigan Medical. They'll come back to the top of the form. Some of the other questions that we have. So we are curious on the training topics as well. And this can be partner institutions or partner industry partners that may help us in this space. This might be simply items that we're looking for amongst higher ed. There are many opportunities within this of what can we find and help out in the space. at least around specific training. One thing that Eric and I have bantered on a few times was, so when building SSPs, we recognize that keeping them sustainable and not, you write it and it's done, is going to be a challenge we're all going to be facing likely. We put so much time and effort into it, and then suddenly next week's change control board makes a new decision, and how are you making sure that that becomes part of your documentation moving forward? Trying to think of some of the others. We were thinking best of breed of tools so for example, if I know many of us are now building our Azure environments with Office 365 GCC High. So maybe what does a standard set of tools look like amongst us? I think that one had gotten some good conversation going before. We are also recognizing that think beyond just the IT side of things. We have the export control officers who may be intersecting with us on, okay, are there items that we should be factoring in that is just part of their world? How do we share that information out? We do have a good list going here. PCI, is there any? I would be intrigued if anyone has PCI going in here, but you know what? That seems like something we should know about if that's in regulated research.
In our environment, we actually have PCI within a controlled region that supports other types of niche solutions. So,
Oh, what business case?
they call it the HCE, which is the high trust computing environment, and then that's also, so our PCI is kind of a subset of that. It's a CDE environment that's part of. So it has a lot of parallels to some of these.
Wow. Yeah. Probably want to learn a little bit more about that. And you'll notice you just got signed up.
Yeah, apparently I'm just going to proxy that over to the expert that maintains it.
Perfectly fine by me. I suppose on GDPR, well, it doesn't have any votes. What would the community like to know about that?
I have a suggestion. Maybe it should be rephrased in a broader sense, because GDPR is just one of many, right? You have the California CCPA, and then you have China's recently introduced policy as well.
part of my hopes is, while I recognize we won't be able to showcase all of them, if we can share opportunities where maybe here's a tried and true talk on this area, how do we share that back out to the community is going to be definitely the interest. So I'm looking to gather whatever resources we can on this. This is great. With 10 minutes or less, so there's opportunities to breathe before your next meeting. The next area that we were asking about was essentially what collaboration or resource opportunities. So for example, I showed that list of here's other communities that we see as very valuable allies and have alignment with us. And I'm curious what other ones that you participate in that maybe we should be helping share information between them. Oh, there's so many acronyms I've never seen or heard of too. And I'm right there with you guys. We had to spell out some of ours because people look at that list and they're just like, never heard of it. You're right. But they're talking about the same things we are. And the last question that truly just free form in this one, if you have other ideas of what would you most like to see delivered from this community of practice, and how can we best assist you in what, I don't know, what you're solving. That at least brings me to the end of formal content, and I very, very, very much appreciate everyone coming out today. This is going to be incredibly valuable as you see it forming. You'll see updates to the website coming through. You'll see, hopefully, the invite was the series and not just one. I think it was the series. Checking out some of the chat items too. I suppose what would anyone like to bring up as either suggestions, needs? How do we, as just kicking off, how would you best like to be communicated with or informed of many of these updates? So many muted microphones. I know.
Do you already import a lot of us to a mailing list, or do we need to sign up at the top of this document?
If you're here, you've probably been notified about this. So if I haven't, if you got it based on a forward and you haven't seen communications from either myself or info@regulatedresearch.com or .org, sorry, then yes, please sign up. But if if I've known about you through workshops, I've known about you through mentoring or various times that we've intersected prior, yeah, you can't escape yet. Yeah, I know Trusted CI had shared the communications about this first kickoff. And so if I don't know about you and you arrive that way, please do make sure we know about you.
Yeah, it looks like I got the kickoff email and then the community discussion. So is it safe to say I'm already signed up appropriately?
It is safe to say that.
Great, thanks.
Of course.
Yeah, another idea for resources. Are there any conferences that pertain to this subject matter that, you know, occur annually or semi-annually?
The Trusted CI workshop is one that is closely related, but not exactly the same. But there are some being organized by NIST. I know there was one relatively recently. So when we find them, we can list them on our website. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll look around, see what I can find. It's been a while, but I know some of those smaller educational organizations, like where you have ACM and I think like SIGCOM was one of them, or quite a few, but they end up being, you know, pretty small conferences, but they have a lot of great material. Like
One group.
NDSS was probably the more famous of those kind of niche conferences I'm alluding to. Although I don't know if NDSS would have the same content for this community, but
one of the groups I've been working with EDUCAUSE is a community group making an 800-171 toolkit. And so many of those resources that we are producing in other venues, I hope to be able to say, all right, let's give them credit for what they've worked on. Actually, I see a few of my group members too, but just essentially ways of sharing what's going on beyond any single confine. All right, well, thank you all so much, and I guess have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.